Once upon a time in the land of Oku, the villagers began preparing for the annual festivities because their prince, Prince Kofi, would be choosing his bride. Chioma and her elder sister, Adoaku, talked about the event all week and prepared very well for the customary dance before the prince. Chioma knew it was Adoaku's dream to marry the prince, so she was rooting for her sister to win the competition. The day for the festivities came and all the girls in the village, including Chioma and Adoaku, stood in front of the prince. The girls beautifully began dancing one by one in front of the prince as he sat on his throne. Adoaku was next in line and her beauty alone caught the attention of the prince. The whole crowd cheered for her as she beautifully danced before the prince. And after she was done, Chioma was next in line. Since she wanted her sister to win, she just didn't do anything extraordinary, but as Chioma continued dancing, the prince walked up to her and offered to dance with her. Chioma couldn't believe her eyes because a dance with the prince meant you've been chosen by the prince to be his bride. After the dance with the prince, all the villagers began to celebrate as the prince had found his bride. Adoaku tearfully watched as her dream of marrying the prince had just been stolen by her younger sister. She felt so broken and shattered, but Chioma on the other hand felt so guilty for all that happened and decided not to marry the prince. When Adoaku saw the guilt on her sister's face, she encouraged her to go on with the marriage, and although she didn't get to marry the prince, at least one of them did. After all, she was not to be blamed because it was the prince who chose her and there was nothing anyone could do about that. But ever since the day Chioma became the wife of the prince, Adoaku became so filled with anger that she never spoke to her sister again. Few months after Chioma's marriage to the prince, she became pregnant. When her pregnancy was due, she couldn't give birth. The village midwives tried all they possibly knew, but for 5 days now, the baby just wasn't ready to come to this world. The worried prince consulted the village wise men about the situation, and after the wise man talked with the spirit realm, he got a solution. Chioma had to drink from the virgin river, River Ando, in the Forbidden Forest, and her sister, Adoaku, had to be the one to get the water from the forest. That was the only way Chioma could give birth. The prince with some of his men hurriedly went to Adoaku's house to talk to her about the situation. Adoaku vehemently disagreed to go into the Forbidden Forest, but her mother cried and begged her to save her sister and her unborn baby, to which she changed her mind. As such, all the villagers bid her farewell as she ventured into the Forbidden Forest. After 3 days in the forest, she luckily returned with the water from the Virgin River. When the villagers saw her, they all began to celebrate and heap praises unto her. Adoaku then sent the water to the palace and gave it to her sister to drink. Sadly, when Chioma drank the water, she died along with her unborn baby. The prince and the villagers became very angry and blamed Adoaku for the death of Chioma. They believed Adoaku had poisoned the water and given it to her sister out of the hate and jealousy she held towards her. Adoaku pleaded with the prince and the angry villagers because she had done nothing of that sort, and although she was angry with her sister, she had never thought of killing her. But as she was explaining herself, the villagers took her to the village square, tied her to a plank and set her on fire. The villagers believed they had purged the land of Adoaku's abominations, so they all began to celebrate. The next day, when the villagers woke up, all their children who were below 10 years of age were dead. A heavy grief and sorrow fell on the village as they sadly mourned the death of their children. The village wise man then gathered all the villagers and told them about the mistake they made by killing Adoaku because she was innocent and didn't poison her sister. He explained that the only way the sudden deaths would end was if the prince gave up his life to be killed the same way they killed Adoaku. So, the prince tearfully offered himself as a sacrifice for his people and they set him on fire.